Hey there, welcome back. Tonight, we're going to explore some of the strangest rulers in history. These were kings and emperors, sultans and czars, who held great power, but lived very unusual lives. They were not always bad rulers, and not always mad, but they all left behind stories that make historians pause, smile, or shake their heads. We'll begin in just a moment, but before we do, write in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I always love seeing how far our little circle of listeners reaches. And if you enjoy these calm, thoughtful stories, feel free to like or subscribe. It truly helps. Thank you. Now, let's begin tonight's story.
Our first strange ruler is one of the most famous, Nero Claudius Caesar, emperor of Rome from the year 54 to 68 AD. He came to power at just 16 years old. His mother, Agrippina the Younger, had worked tirelessly to place him on the throne. She married the emperor Claudius, convinced him to adopt Nero as his son, and may have even poisoned him when the time came. At first, Nero was guided by capable advisors. The philosopher Seneca was one of them. For a few years, Rome was peaceful, but then Nero changed. He wanted more than power, he wanted applause. Nero dreamed of being a performer, not a warrior or ruler. He took lessons in singing, acting, and lyre playing. He performed in private at first, then in public. For Roman elites, this was shocking. An emperor on stage? It seemed undignified, but Nero didn't care. He forced senators to attend his long performances, and no one dared leave. Some reportedly faked fainting to escape. He also raced chariots, dressed like Greek athletes, and insisted on winning every prize. But stranger things happened. Nero became increasingly paranoid. He believed plots surrounded him. He had his own mother killed, fearing she had grown too powerful. He had his wife killed too. Then, in guilt or madness, he married a young boy who resembled her, and held a wedding ceremony in full. Some historians believe Nero set fire to Rome in 64 AD to clear land for a new palace. As the city burned, stories say he played the lyre and sang, though this may be a myth. What is true is that he built a massive golden palace in the ruins, complete with gardens, lakes, and a 100-foot-tall statue of himself. The Roman people were not impressed. Eventually, the army rebelled. Nero fled the city. Alone, frightened, he begged his few remaining followers to help him die. When they would not, he took his own life, saying, "What an artist dies in me." He was 30 years old. Today, we remember Nero as a strange figure, half emperor, half performer, a man who ruled the greatest empire of his time, but only wanted to hear the sound of clapping hands. Our next ruler is from colder lands. Paul I of Russia became emperor in 1796, after the death of his mother, Catherine the Great. He had waited a long time. His mother ruled for over 30 years and barely let him near power. She did not trust him. Some say she even considered skipping him in the line of succession. When she died, Paul finally took the throne. And that's when things got strange. At first, he tried to undo much of what his mother had done. He reversed policies, removed her advisors, and promoted new faces. But behind these changes was a man deeply nervous. Paul was obsessed with order, especially military discipline. He forced soldiers to wear old-fashioned uniforms, with tight trousers, high collars, and stiff jackets, the kind of outfit no one could breathe in, or sit down comfortably while wearing. One officer reportedly fainted from heat after hours of standing still. Paul's reply? He's lucky.
Now he doesn't have to follow orders. He also introduced strange military drills. Soldiers had to march in perfect circles, over and over, while Paul watched in silence. He once punished a whole regiment because a private sneezed during inspection. He even passed a rule banning the use of round tables because he thought they looked untrustworthy. Yes, round tables. At his palace, Paul had walls moved and rebuilt, sometimes more than once a week. He believed the layout of rooms could protect him from spies or ghosts. At night, he feared being murdered in his sleep. So he slept in different rooms, changed guards constantly, and checked under his bed himself. But paranoia doesn't always help. In 1801, a group of nobles, tired of his erratic orders and endless changes, stormed his palace. Paul tried to hide behind a curtain, but they found him, and his reign ended there, just 5 years after it began. His son, Alexander I, replaced him and ruled more calmly. But Paul remains one of Russia's most curious emperors, a man who wanted to bring order but ended up drowning in it.
Our next ruler was not violent nor cruel. He did not shout orders or fear betrayal. He simply disappeared into dreams. Ludwig II of Bavaria, born in 1845, was a shy and thoughtful man. He became king at just 18 years old. From the start, Ludwig had little interest in politics or war. He preferred poetry, music, and moonlight walks through the forest. He ruled during a time of change in Europe, when empires shifted and governments grew more modern. But Ludwig seemed untouched by time. He called himself the Moon King and lived as if he were in another world. Ludwig admired old stories, knights, dragons, and saints. He read tales of Parsifal and Lohengrin, ancient heroes from German myths. These stories meant more to him than Parliament ever did. He also loved music, especially the operas of Richard Wagner. He became Wagner's patron, giving him money, homes, and endless support. Some say the composer drained Bavaria's treasury, and Ludwig didn't mind. But Ludwig's greatest passion was building castles. He didn't build them for defense. He built them for beauty. The most famous is Neuschwanstein Castle, perched high in the mountains. It looks like something from a storybook. Towers, murals, gold leaf, endless balconies. But it wasn't meant to be lived in. It was a dream turned to stone. Inside, there were rooms dedicated to Wagner's operas. Paintings of swans, stars, and kings filled the halls. One room had a fake cave with colored lights and dripping water. He often dined alone, at a table lifted through the floor by a hidden mechanism, so he wouldn't see the servants. As the years passed, Ludwig withdrew further. He stopped attending meetings. He rarely spoke to ministers. He stayed awake at night and slept during the day. He traveled in sleighs under moonlight, wrapped in velvet and silence. Government officials grew uneasy. His building projects were draining the royal budget. One minister wrote, thoughtful, "He is not mad, but he is not fit to reign." Eventually, in 1886, doctors declared him insane, without ever examining him. They removed him from power. A few days later, Ludwig was found dead in a shallow lake. No one knows exactly how he died. Some say he drowned. Others believe there was a struggle. To this day, it remains one of Bavaria's quiet mysteries. Ludwig left behind debts and confusion, but also castles that millions now visit each year. Walt Disney was inspired by Neuschwanstein when designing his first theme park castle. And today, Ludwig is remembered with affection, not as a madman, but as a gentle dreamer who tried to build peace in a world of stone and silence. Our next story takes us to the heart of the Ottoman Empire.
to the city of Constantinople in the early 1600s. There, behind the marble walls of Topkapi Palace, lived a man named Ibrahim. He would become known as Ibrahim the Mad. But to understand him, we must first understand where he came from. Ibrahim was born in 1615. He was the son of an Ottoman sultan, but his early life was not a royal dream. In the Ottoman tradition, potential heirs to the throne were often kept in seclusion, a system known as the kafes, or the cage. It wasn't a literal cage, but it was close. Young princes lived in small apartments deep inside the palace. They were not allowed to leave. They had no official duties. They were watched constantly. The goal was to keep them safe and out of politics. But years in isolation can affect a person. Ibrahim spent over 20 years in the cage. He saw his brothers executed. He was told more than once that he would be next. Some say he began to lose touch with the world. In 1640, the Sultan died. Ibrahim's mother, Qasem, pulled him from the cage and declared him Sultan. At first, Ibrahim refused. He believed it was a trick to justify his execution. But eventually, he accepted the crown. He was paranoid, fragile, and unsure how to rule. His mother, a powerful figure, tried to guide him, but Ibrahim grew more independent and more erratic. Ibrahim's reign quickly became known for its bizarre behavior. He became obsessed with wealth and physical pleasures. He ordered rooms lined with fur, especially sable, which he believed gave him strength. He demanded large numbers of concubines and held extravagant ceremonies that shocked even the Ottoman court. One story claims he threw coins into the Bosphorus to see how they sparkled. Another says he tied jewels to cats just to watch them walk. He trusted fortune tellers and charlatans and once gave away entire provinces to friends as gifts. He reportedly became fixated on one woman in the harem, known as Shekerpare, or Sugar Cube, who held deep influence over him. Some historians believe he suffered from mental illness brought on by his early isolation. Others say he simply never learned how to rule. As his decisions grew more unstable, his mother Qasem and the high officials acted. In 1648, after just 8 years on the throne, Ibrahim was deposed. He was taken back to the palace and quietly executed. Ibrahim's story is a sad one, not of cruelty, but of a man never prepared for the world he inherited. A prince kept in silence, a sultan lost in shadows. His short reign is often remembered with embarrassment in Turkish history. But today, historians also see the pain behind the strangeness. Sometimes, the strangest rulers are also the most broken.
We return now to the city of Constantinople in the 6th century AD. The Roman Empire in the east, the Byzantine Empire, was still strong. Its palaces were grand, its armies vast, and its rulers divine in name. And seated upon its throne was Emperor Justin II. At first, he seemed like a promising leader. He was the nephew of Justinian the Great, one of Rome's most famous emperors. He inherited a strong empire and began his rule with purpose. But as the years passed, things began to change, quietly, then suddenly. Justin II took the throne in 565 AD. He tried to live up to his uncle's legacy, restoring laws, managing finances, expanding influence. But soon, his mind began to break under the weight of the empire. He was surrounded by pressure, wars on multiple fronts, religious conflicts in the Christian world, economic troubles left by earlier conquests. The stress built over time, and in his final years, something inside him seemed to snap. Historical records from court observers and chroniclers say that Justin began to hallucinate. He claimed to see demons in the corners of his chambers. He would scream uncontrollably, then laugh at nothing at all. He could no longer sleep.
He stopped attending council meetings, and his behavior became more alarming. He began to bite his servants. Yes, not symbolically, literally. Those closest to him reported that he would lunge forward, teeth bared, and bite aides or guards who came too close. Some had to wear thick clothing just to serve him. He could no longer trust his own mind. In a rare moment of clarity, Justin realized this. In 574 AD, he did something few rulers of his time ever dared. He formally handed power to a trusted general, Tiberius, who became co-emperor. It was an act of humility, and perhaps the last decision he made with reason. Justin lived 2 more years, under care, surrounded by guards, and silence. He died in 578, remembered not for his policies, but for the strange and tragic way his reign ended. Justin II is a lesser-known emperor today, but his story reminds us of something real. Even rulers, even emperors surrounded by gold and power, can suffer quietly. His strange behavior was likely a form of mental illness, worsened by isolation and unrelenting stress. In his time, there were no words for it, only whispers in the palace halls. This story takes us to medieval France, in the 14th century, a time of knights and castles, of battles and black plagues, a time when kings ruled by divine right, and one king began to believe he might shatter. His name was Charles VI. He became king of France at just 11 years old, in the year 1380. At first, people called him Charles the Beloved. He was kind, well-liked, and showed promise. But over time, that title would change. He would later be remembered as Charles the Mad. Charles ruled during a time of great instability, wars with England, rivalries within France, and deep economic struggles. At age 24, something in him broke. During a journey through the forest with his guards, he suddenly turned and attacked his own men, believing they were traitors. He killed one and injured several others. Afterward, he fell into a deep, silent trance, refusing to speak or recognize anyone. It was the first of many such episodes. Charles would spend long stretches without memory. At times, he believed he was not king at all, and most famously, he believed he was made of glass. He wore reinforced clothing and refused to let anyone touch him. He would sit still for hours, fearing that if he moved too quickly, he would crack or shatter. He reportedly had iron rods sewn into his clothes to protect his body, like armor for a man not afraid of war, but of breaking. While Charles remained king, his condition made daily rule impossible. Power shifted constantly between nobles, factions, and even his wife and brother. France, meanwhile, slipped deeper into internal conflict, some of which would lead to the long and painful 100 Years' War. All the while, Charles drifted in and out of his illness. He had moments of clarity, brief windows when he recognized his children, his crown, and his kingdom, but they never lasted. In one odd episode, Charles forgot he had ever married. He asked his queen why she was still living in the palace. When told she was his wife, he became distressed and ran from her. Other times he offed uncontrollably or whispered to ghosts no one else could see. Charles lived with his illness for over 30 years. He died in 1422 at the age of 53. By that time, much of his kingdom had slipped from royal control. The English held parts of northern France. His own son had been exiled. But Charles left behind more than a broken crown. He left the story of a king, fragile, gentle, lost in his own mind, and a reminder that strength does not always lie in armor, and that even the most powerful rulers can be undone by something as quiet as fear. And that, dear listener, is where our journey rests tonight. We've walked through cold palaces and moonlit castles, past paranoid emperors, glass-skinned kings, and dreamers lost in music. all real, all once powerful, all in their own ways very human. Thank you for listening to this quiet story. If you enjoyed it, I'd be so grateful if you gave this video a like and maybe even subscribed for more tales like this one. Sleep well. Good night.